Howdy, Dave. How you doing? Hey, Dave. Is your mic on? Oh, there. And the headsets go on. That's when you know. Nice thing about
Hey, Phil.
headsets. Nice thing about
Morning.
headsets is you can tell when people are online because they've got their headsets on. Hey, there's Frank. I can hit Frank up early. So I need you to mark on your calendar. You guys both might want to do this. So December 8th. So I was thinking about what to do for our auction for clinics. And I feel like we've kind of gotten a little stale. And I got the question saying, can we do the, micro clinics we did probably in about 2018, 19, right before the pandemic. And my thought was maybe to do something different. They did this at the narrow gauge convention. I thought it was pretty popular, is just to have a weathering workshop. And my thought is to invite anyone who wants to come who has done weathering and has a technique. I'll bring my chalk stuff. I'll bring some washes. I have a bunch of pan pastels, and I haven't done anything with them. My thought was to have people come and set up a few tables, tell people you can bring a model. And then I was thinking about taking those shells we have. They give away free shells from the NMRA. I found that on the website. I didn't realize they did that. But I thought I'd just take a bunch of them and just put them on a board and spray paint them with some red cheap primer and bring them in, and people can practice weathering on those. Does that make sense? Seems like a fun activity to do.
Yeah, if I can make it, I can help.
Just that's why I was asking is, get I I think if we get three or four people here, what they did at the narrow gauge convention, they just had bring your models for weathering, and people came in and you sat down and they had people set up and they had different weathering things. You could talk to people about how to weather stuff, and it just becomes kind of a discussion on weathering, but also demonstration slash. I wouldn't mind bringing an ON30 car and getting it weathered. I've got a few cars that I need to get weathered, so be a good idea for me too.
I like the idea.
Yep, we got a room. I mean, we've got an extra room. We're paying for the room because I wanted to have something more than just the auction. I felt like just the auction was pretty blah. So anyway, yeah. So I've got all the, we're gonna February 15th. We're gonna be at Larry's house, up north, and that's gonna be, I think, a fun event as well. And Jesse Walden volunteered to coordinate a square foot challenge for that, which
Mhm.
should be good because then if you build one for that, hopefully they'll have one in San Luis Obispo, and you can take it to San Luis Obispo. So cool. Well, I give about 2 more minutes to see who else shows up. People tend to show up a little late, it seems like. So Oh, well, so how's everything going for everyone?
Uh,
Well, other than the usual group sets of maladies that happen because you get older. It's
you speak
welcome,
for
Bob.
all of us.
Yeah, no, I know. There are times when you feel like, wow, this is just not as good as it was a few years ago. Oh well.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning,
Or-
Bob. We said we wait a few minutes and get a few more folks on before we start, and then go ahead and kick off here, and it'll be a quickie. I got a quick intro, but I've got all the I have all the events on slides now because I want to go through them because we've got a bunch of events coming up over the next couple 3 months. So not just coast events, but like the SIG weekend is coming up, and of course, then the convention in March. They all come pretty quick now with the convention at the end of March.
Hey, Phil, updating the website would be really easy if you sent me that deck.
It's all in an email. I'll send you the deck. I'll send you the deck. In
Send
fact,
me
you
the
can.
deck. Just send me the deck.
In
Yeah.
fact, yeah.
In fact, I just got my email turned back on. I had to go back. It was associated with my the company I shut down in May, and I couldn't get my NMRA thing fixed until I got my old email back and some other things because they wanted me to reset my password, which I had no access to. So anyway, I'm all back on my previous company's email. It just cost me $50 to restore my sanity. So I went to GoDaddy and paid him 50. It cost me $50 to get my domain name back up. 25 bucks for the domain name and 25 bucks for some kind of mandatory security thing. But then everything works. So
yeah, I don't know. There are times.
yeah, well, it's technology is a great thing. I'll just say, for all of the challenges, I remember when we had 1200 BPS modems.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is all the problems are all good.
It's in the chat, Bob.
Awesome.
I thought I'd do that. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and kick this off real quick, and then I've got like I said, I'm just going to go through the events that we have coming up, and said there are a number of them, but we'll just go through them real quick, and then we'll kick into just an open discussion today. Unfortunately, I didn't really arrange to have any specific activities, so. Welcome. This is the actually November 2nd PCR Coast Division virtual event. Ignore the October 19th on the slides. Want to go through real quickly just a quick update on some upcoming events. Again, a request for volunteers. Do need some volunteers for a couple of the events. I'll talk about that during the event, about the events. And then today we just have general coast modeling discussion, maybe a bit of discussion about the events after we go through this. So the first event to mark your calendars for is December 8th. That will be at the Mastic Senior Center, which is in Alameda. That's where we've been before. You can see the picture on the right. We'll open about 9:30 for bringing in your items. If you'd like to register for items to auction, please contact me and we'll get you on the list to get your tickets. For the auction, you can apply and get tickets in advance. We'll get all the info on that for our next meeting in 2 weeks, so everybody will have it. Lunch will be provided at noon. We're going to go ahead and provide lunch. It'll probably be fairly simple, maybe sandwiches or something. We'll have a business meeting at 12:15, and then start the auction right after the business meeting about 12:30. And probably it'll take about 2 to 2.5 hours, so we should be done by 3. It's a great building, easy access. It's easy access in and off of 880. So it's easy to get to. So go ahead and mark your calendars for that. We have seen a little bit of an increase, but it'd be great to get more of the members to come back to the auction, both to buy and to sell. Like I said, it's a great place to get rid of the things you're never going to use, and it's a great space to buy the things you absolutely need. So the other thing we have coming up, there are 2 great American train shows. One is in the end of December, middle of December, 14th and 15th at the Pleasanton Fairgrounds. And then in February on the 8th and the 9th in San Jose. We will have a table, picture of the table on the right. We've kind of focused last year on really trying to sell the convention and recruiting. One of the things I think that kind of a lot of the members have expressed that they missed was the idea of having other activities. So I'm very open to someone suggesting that. I know we have a time saver. We can think about whether we want to do something like that. If we kind of separate the two, I think we can have both a little bit of a fun and engaging the public activity as well as doing the recruiting. And kind of, I think they can work together if we'd like to. There'll be 2 shifts. If you use the QR code on the right, you can volunteer. There's one of those little forms that we've used set up for volunteer times. I need to get names because I'll need to get badges, and I'll need to set up with your emails like we did last time to arrange to get the badges information to you. Show interest will be provided. We'll get free tickets from the Great Train Show for the number of volunteers we have coming. And if you need subsidized parking, it costs $15 in Pleasanton. I don't know if it's 10 or 15 in San Jose. If someone needs subsidized parking, the division will subsidize parking for volunteers. So that's on the 14th and 15th of December and February 8th and 9th, 2025. The other event is,
Phil, who
yes.
has a time saver? Mo used to have it. I haven't seen it in years.
I know. I've got to contact Mo and see if he's got it. That's actually a great point.
He
I was
has
thinking
both
about
an HO and he has an ON3 or ON30 time savers. And since he hasn't been around, we should get him back.
Yeah, let me contact Mo and see if we can get him back from him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that, I think I was kind of pedantic last year about focusing on recruiting. We did very well on recruiting, but I think, there's kind of a desire of folks to do some other things. I mean, the other thing I was thinking we could just do is have some model displays. If we had a table set up with, models of NMRA members and just have people who are going to volunteer be willing to come in and bring in a model, and we'll put them there and have them for display and viewing. I think that might be the other thing to do, kind of like a, contest table. We have a little while to decide. We'll talk about this again in 2 weeks, but think about what we should do at that event. Those 2 of those. The other thing, by the way, is I did talk to Bill about the potential of us doing clinics of some kind. And he may have a little bit of space. I need to go talk to him and see. We may be able to have a little bit of space and be able to do some clinics if we're interested. So it might be worth thinking about that as well. Almost like an introduction to model railroading clinic, maybe a, basics of scenery clinic, connecting DCC up. We could do some very basic clinics for people at a train show, kind of introduction to model railroading. If people would be interested in, kind of putting one of those together and doing it. Anyway,
Phil?
Hey, Phil,
yes,
Phil, what's the venue in San Jose?
it's at the Santa Clara Fairgrounds.
Perfect. Thanks.
They're both at the fairgrounds. And if you look there at the picture, that picture is in the San Jose building. So that's kind of where we were. We were kind of out in a little bit of an open area right between the vendors and the modules. Because typically what they have at the front of the building, they have all the vendors when you first walk in. And then about halfway through the building, it changes and it becomes some modular layouts for attracting the public. Now, I don't know, Pleasanton, they used to do 2 buildings in Pleasanton. This last time they had 1 building. My expectation is they'll also just have 1 building in Pleasanton this year for cost reason.
Hey, Phil?
Yes.
Phil? I would suggest that you push recruiting hard at these train shows. I don't think there's a better place to recruit anywhere ever than at these train shows, because you have general public who are interested in trains. So no matter what you do, and I think all of the other things are great because they will attract people, but I would absolutely push recruiting here and I would not stop.
Right. And that's why having, if we want to do other things, we need to have enough volunteers. This was the biggie between us about me pushing for just focusing on recruiting was a concern about where we were spending our volunteer time. So, I think if we can get 3 people to sign up for a shift, having 1 person do a demo and a couple of people do recruiting would be great. or one person run. But the focus, as Bob says, really on recruiting, I think is very important because there are few opportunities for us to get the NMRA name out. And it's amazing to me how many people still, when you talk to them, say, "Oh, I didn't know that existed. Gee, that sounds great." So anyway, if anyone would like to, if you sign up and volunteer, I put on there a place to say you'd be interested in doing something else. Anyone who's interested, just volunteer for a shift, and I'll send an email out to everyone and set a time up, and we can get together and talk about kind of how we'd like to set it up. Because if we want to, we can set up the table separately and set up. If Bob gives us room, we can set up 10 chairs there, and we can have a schedule that says, at 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock, and 3 o'clock, we're going to do a clinic, and it can almost be the same thing for that matter. Introduction to model railroading, the hobby that we can start model railroading, the hobby that'll help you live 5 years longer. Whatever we want to do. Anyway, enough said. I think, yeah.
I'll volunteer for one
on the website. So either
okay,
in the email, I'll put the link or use the QR code. The problem is when people tell me now, if I don't write it down, I forget. That's why if you click and go to that link, it has has the 2 shows and the shifts. So just click on a shift and then click on the bottom if you'd like to do something else, if you'd like to bring models or whatever. Anyone who does that, I'll send an email out and schedule a Zoom meeting, and we'll talk about it at some point in the future before the 9th, the 8th and 9th. Enough said. Okay, jump to the next one. This is a great opportunity. Unfortunately, this year it's a little bit of a trip, but there are a couple of interesting ways of doing that. This is the Bay Area SIG Weekend. The Bay Area SIG Weekend is January 31st to February 2nd. If you've never been to a SIG Weekend, it's basically a combination of some clinics and talks. There are kind of some in-person activities. There's generally some tours set up. When they did this before, I think they had a tour of the shops, if I remember correctly, at the Railroad Museum. We'll see what they have this year. And then there are generally operating sessions and this will be up in the Sacramento area. So it'll be at the California State Railroad Museum. So go up there. It'll be basically starts Friday, then goes into Saturday and Sunday. So it's over the weekend. This is, by the way, the weekend between the final divisional playoff round and the Super Bowl. So this is kind of that dead weekend from a football perspective, which is why they choose this weekend, because it's easier to go to. So if you haven't gone to it, it's great. I'm probably going to send out something on the PCR website if there's interest in thinking about doing an Airbnb. If anyone's interested, we did that for the Pittsburgh narrow gauge show. I did it with some guys from the East Coast, and we got a 3-bedroom Airbnb that the upstairs room had 2 queen size beds in it, and we had 3 and then 4 people for a couple of nights, and we averaged it out. It came out to about $55 a night to stay there. So if you're interested, we'll see if we can do something like that for this kind of event where you can do it a little bit cheaper in the local area. The next event is our Coast Winter Meet, which and Larry is here, so thanks very much to the Golden State Model Railroad Museum in Richmond. They will be hosting us for our February 15th meet. This will be morning clinics. There's 1 room there, so we'll just have 2 clinics in the morning, a single track. I'm hoping we will be able to do that virtually. It's quite frankly the weekend right after the SIG meet, so that's asking a lot of John and Sid, but we'll see if they'll be willing to do it. It's just taking the stuff from Sacramento and moving it to Richmond. And then we'll do some afternoon layout tours in the North Bay. Hopefully get a few interesting layouts, maybe some things, hopefully find something people have not seen before. Jesse Walden has volunteered to host and drive a square foot challenge. So this is great because generally there's a square foot challenge at the convention. So this is an opportunity to build a square foot challenge module or model and have it be there for both. So something to put on your agenda for the Christmas holidays when you're on break and have nothing else to do is to build a square foot module. So that'll be the February 15th, then March 27th to the 30th is the PCR convention. So that'll kind of finish out our year. And then, of course, from the coast perspective, sometime in May, and we haven't set a date yet, will be our spring auction event. And then we're trying to see if doing something else as far as a field trip. One question from everyone, basically, as we jump into coast modeling, the Red Division had an event up at the Trolley Museum and I can't remember the town now. It's or on the other side of the bridge
Rio Vista.
in Rio Vista. Question for folks from more the South Bay of the peninsula. I mean, is Rio Vista a bridge too far to have an event at and have a lot of people go to it? I mean, we tried an event, and the reason I'm bringing this up is I want to be really honest with myself about where people will drive to. You know, we did an event at Roaring Camp, and it was a steam up event. You know, come about 8:30 in the morning, watch the engines steam up, talk to the guys while they steam up the engines, have a shop tour, and then you can ride the train, and there was a discount. And I think we had 9 people show up or 10 people show up. And I was quite frankly, quite disappointed because you get people to have their layouts open and only 10 people show up. So my question is, you know, if you look at Rio Vista, is it too far to go to? And, you know, and Charlie, obviously for you, you know, it's a long trip. So, you know, I guess it's real just honest. If we had an event at Rio Vista, you know, something where we had, you know, some shop tours in the morning, maybe a train ride in the afternoon, and then some sort of a lunch there, how many folks would be willing to drive to that?
It depends.
Yeah, so basically, you know, I think that this is the challenge I'm kind of facing with this is I think once we get outside of the core Bay Area, you know, if we do something at Niles Canyon, we get a lot of folks to come because it's kind of in the middle of the Bay Area. So it's kind of, to me, if we don't do something in those areas, it's hard. The Berkeley, Tilden, we got a good turnout for. Anyway, so any thoughts there about a place to go that would be a good tour? I'd love to think about something in San Jose. I've been thinking about kind of the train they have in San Jose there. I don't know if we have anybody who has a contact there. That might be interesting to see if we could schedule something there.
Yeah, one thing about Rio Vista is that they do have that new 3-car BART train set.
Right. Oh, it's just it's just the problem is, you know, to get there by 10 o'clock, 9:30, if you're Charlie, you've got to leave. It's an hour and a half drive, hour drive, right?
Yeah, it's an hour and a half at least.
Yeah. So, you know, even on Sunday, even if you do it on a Saturday or a Sunday, it's still, anyway,
The problem is it's an hour and a half out, hour and a half back. So you're going to spend 3 hours of the day, at least I would spend 3 hours of the day driving. So it's one of those,
yeah, it's got to be pretty powerful where, you know, I think going to Niles Canyon is half that distance. So it's an hour and a half versus, so that's anyway, that kind of answered that question from my perspective, because I was looking at that as a great venue. We went up there, the ON30 group went up there, just basically got together as a group and drove up one time. And we were walking around and kind of sniffing around the shops and looking around, and there was one of the volunteers there, and we started talking to him, and he gave us a tour of the car barn. We got to crawl all over everything, and it was pretty fun. They have a lot of stuff there that's very interesting, but like you said, it's an awful long drive. Anyway, well, I'll just throw it open for anyone to comment on what they've been doing, what they've been modeling. I left my modeling down, my stuff downstairs. I'm doing numbers for Jim Radke's yards. Well, he's got 6-yard tracks, and he bought an inexpensive video system, but he has the numbers on the yard tracks are kind of stick pins with little pieces of tape on the side of them. So I'm 3D printing letters that are they're basically 3D printed blocks with a letter on them, you know, a number for the tracks, and mount them on a bar and put them above the track so you can actually see which track your engine's going into. And
so you can actually see the number when the yard is busy.
Well, it's above the yard. It's a yard throat like a loop yard. There's in and out. And basically the way he's got it set up is he's got a set of macros in his NEC system where you enter a macro and it sets the turnouts for track 1, for example. And then he's got a video camera, want to be able to see that you can see track 1 and be able to see getting into it. So yeah, if we get a second, I'll turn this off and go grab them. So
Phil, you could. It's not so much modeling, but you spent 3-4 days at Desert Ops. You could talk about what that was like.
yeah, and unfortunately, I don't have the pictures here. Actually, you guys talk. You guys talk for a second. I'll get the pictures on my computer. Hang on. Well, it's the problem is getting. I do not have a Mac. I have a PC, and I have kind of a deliberate. I have a deliberate. What's the right word? Quarantine between my PC and my phone. My phone is connected to Apple, and my PC is connected to Google. And I never identify myself on my phone to Google, and I never identify myself on my PC to Apple. Because I figure that at least that way my life is bifurcated in a way that no one understands everything.
Well, the NSA knows everything anyway, don't worry.
Well, that's true. Actually, Safeway knows everything.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to think about it. You got to think about how important knowing everything you buy is. If you go to Safeway, if you're a regular like Safeway shopper, or somewhere like that, because they correlate to your credit card. They know everything you bought in the course of a year. Very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting is one word for it.
Yeah, well, they bribe you. They give you about 10% off for giving up that information.
Yep.
So,
Yes.
hey, I'd be happy to share what I'm working on, Phil.
Go for it. Go for it.
So I've been working on a 1x6 foot ON30 module because I'm probably going to be living in 2 places between the Bay Area and LA. I'm pretty close to getting an offer down there. So I decided that I'd make a 1x6 foot module with a couple of short 1 foot or 2 foot extensions for the runaround. And I've done some interesting things, and I'm just going to sort of swivel this. So one of the things that I've done is this hooks up to the CCC ON30 module set, but in addition, it has a bolt in the middle of the end plate, which means that I can rotate this to work on it. So this is the track side that's the ON30 module over there, sort of in the sun. I mean, the Central California Coast module. And then this wraps over to the end. There's the legs are at the end so that a pivot point allows the module to swivel. So one of Phil's favorite things to do is working underneath the module and soldering above his head. I know that that's everybody's favorite thing to do. So what I can do is turn it to the side and set up my soldering iron. And I'm not at the soldering stage right now. I'm about to locate some stuff on the bottom, but I basically have 19 DCC feeds, and I'm going to solder them right here once I put in the bus. For certain operations, I really want to work on the table with the bottom side up when I'm affixing components, so I can basically turn it so it's completely bottom side up, upside down. But most of the time I'm working on it like this. So right now I have, and then I actually made a shift. I was going to do this all sort of manually. I've been working ping-ponging between the NMRA calls and my CCC ON30 calls, and I got some really great input. And I had a bug put in my head where somebody said, hey, they put in some of the electronics behind a piece of clear plexiglass or lucite so that people could see it. And I wasn't going to use DCC control for my turnouts, but since I have the stuff anyway, and I'm trying to not spend a lot of money, because if I'm interviewing for a new job, I'm in between jobs right now. So I'm like, well, I'm not trying to spend more money, reuse what I have. So I decided that I'm going to hook up my electronic circuit board and my stalled motor switch controller and a push button controller right in the front vertically, put an LED strip on top of it and make it visible from the front. So that if I want to take this to a show and use it like a time saver, people can see the electronics inside. It takes zero extra effort pretty much to mount these at a 90-degree angle so they're visible. And I'd already thought about putting a plexiglass front along the front side to allow the plexiglass to extend a few inches above the height of the cars, of the rail, just to keep fingers off the rails itself. So I'm at the point where I'm about to wire up a bus of DCC from the center. I'm about to mount these. I'm going to wire a DCC bus going each way to pick up my 19 feeds, and then I'm going to wire in my turnout controls. I'll do LEDs later. I got to figure out what I want to do for push buttons and where I want to put them. Phil is mounting his turnout controls, which are, I think, a double pull, double throw switch or push buttons, whatever, on the top of the module next to the switches or nearby the switches. I'm figuring out where I want to do that, because if I have cars located, you know, I have to figure out where I want to do that, because it might be actually hard to reach a turnout push buttons here if I have a car located here and I have a car here. And while I won't do that, but anyway, I need to think about location. I like the idea of having the push buttons on the top of the layout, because I can just put some kind of thing on top of it, like a box or debris, color code it so it's obvious to me, and then I can just push down on a box or a milk can and the switch will actuate. So that's what I'm working on right now, and so I'm having a lot of fun. So every week something new. Any questions?
I'm curious. The two turnouts on the far left have wooden blocks next to them. Is that to reposition the throw bar? I'm just wondering what those are doing.
No, that's how I mount. Because I'm going through 3/4 of an inch of shelf and 2 layers of foam, the standard method of using a tortoise doesn't work as well. I tried it out and I just didn't really like I had to drill a fairly large hole because the piano.
Oh, I see. Because the throw is so long. Yeah, the throw has to go so far.
So I'm using a technique that I've used for quite a while, which is I use a brass tube to hold a piano wire that goes vertically up through the hole, and then I bend it over and down into the turnout throw. And so I have a design where I actually have two brass tubes, one within the other. And so one of them is in the wooden block, and that's the only place where the outer brass tube is secure. It goes through a larger hole in the shelf and the ply and the foam, and that allows me to locate that exactly where it needs to be. And then that wooden block is epoxied into place.
Can you flip it over so we can see the top side again?
Sure.
That is thick. Yes. Okay, you can't get any close to see, but
well,
no, but
miracles of modern technology.
You
can see the throw and the brass tube. So there's one brass tube that's affixed into the wooden block, and the other brass tube slides in it. And what I do is I put the piano wire in, bring it down, and bend it over. But it takes about a 1/4 inch past the large brass tube for me to get needle nose pliers on it to bend it. So then I slide the second brass tube down to take out the slack and and solder it in place.
Oh, so the inner brass tube, you soldered that to the outer tube. Okay.
So there's if I come back here and bring this up, maybe you can see that there's a inner brass. I don't know if you can see it, but there's an inner brass tube and an outer brass tube, and they're soldered with a drop of solder. And then as a throw, I basically take a piece of brass and twist it and drill a hole in it, and that make a crank.
Cool.
So I've been doing that's how I've been doing turnouts for a while. I tried going back to the standard tortoise way just to see if it worked, and it didn't work well with this, but this works great. I have a 3/8 inch throw at the top and about a 1/2 inch throw at the bottom. and that I'm using 39 thousandths piano wire, which is fairly heavy. So I get some force on the points, because I've never liked turnouts where the points just sort of gently rest near the main rail. I want a
You
little
want
bit
pressure.
of pressure. So I came up with those relative lengths and that piano wire gauge in order to get the tension that seems to work pretty well.
Can I make a suggestion? Write up an article with pictures and circles and arrows and send it off to Cynthia for the NMRA magazine. This is something that might be good to get out there to everybody.
I have been
Or you
taking,
can start by doing a draft and putting it in the Coast magazine
you
first.
know, Phil, you're exactly right, Phil. And so I have been taking detailed photographs of every step of this, including how I used a very simple 12 by 72-inch Home Depot shelf and $5 worth of poplar 1x4 to make the end collar back here. So this is poplar, and then I have 1/2-inch plywood at the end, which it basically matches. It's sort of at a funny angle because it's not mounted well, but the piece that's red there is some scrap plywood it's an adapter plate that would go between this and a standard ON30 module, but it provides the leg that I made has some bolts that are in the way of rotating. So this spaces I put that there to space the end of the module away from the leg so it would rotate. So
and this would also work you towards your author certificate with the AP.
Oh yeah.
So you get extra points out of that one. But no, I think that'd be a great article.
No, I hadn't taken enough photographs in some of my earlier efforts, and a photograph replaces about 4 hours of drawing. And I'm an excellent draftsman, but I don't have time to do 4 hours of drawing for each illustration. So I'm taking photographs like crazy, and I could probably do a handful of small articles out of this.
Yeah, and Cynthia will give you good feedback. She's helped me on a couple of articles I've done.
Yeah. So the other thing that I do that's different is I use 5-minute epoxy to glue my foam road bed to the pink foam and to glue my track to the road bed. And I love 5-minute epoxy because guess how long it takes to set?
5 minutes.
So
That's the test, right?
When I needed to put in this gentle curve, I put pins, and I held it in place exactly where I wanted it because it wouldn't sit exactly where I wanted it to sit with pins. So I just held it exactly where I needed it to be. And lo and behold, it stayed. The interesting thing about 5-minute epoxy is that I can pull the track up without damaging the track with 5-minute, because 5-minute epoxy does not stick to Pico Delrin or whatever that engineering plastic is. It wouldn't work with micro engineering track because that stuff is fragile. But with Pico track, it is actually easy to pull up track. And some of this track has been reused from an earlier effort where I glued it down. I just separated it up with a putty knife under the track and just pulled it up. And then I cleaned off the epoxy, just came right off. And then I put it back down. The foam doesn't fare as well as the track, but it's interesting that I can this track is absolutely down solid. It isn't moving anywhere, and if I wanted to move it or change something, I'm going to put a small pier or dock in here, and I'm probably going to reposition this track and angle it in at about a 10-degree angle. So I'll probably lift it up and angle it or something like that later. But that's the other thing that I'm doing that's sort of interesting. I really don't like waiting for glue to dry. I don't like waiting. I don't want to wait 24 hours for stuff to cure. I sort of like the fast track PC ties thing because you solder it and it's done. But for flex track, this has the same kind of rapid assembly and it's in place and done. It takes way more time to prep the switch than it does to actually glue it in place. So that's
Thank you for the extra information. That's good.
So that's what I'm working on. And I designed this to be able to go with me wherever I go. So that's my plan.
So with that, this was my week. I did not install or anything. I just, of course, you can't see that. I got to take my background off here. Pat, how are you doing? You're visiting us from afar.
Well, I had another meeting at San Leandro to go to this morning, so I went to that meeting, and then I came over to this meeting. Next weekend, I'm going up to Kent, Washington for the Boeing Employee Model Railroad Club show. We'll be selling up there, and then. But no,
Hopefully they
it's
do
been,
better
it's
with
been good.
trains.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm in the crew lounge. Progress has been made. I got the work light, the real nice LED work light hanging over my bench in the shop. And we're supposed to be getting new windows put in the next 4 to 8 weeks. And I'm not going to start any modeling until that's done, because the workbench is directly underneath the window in the shop, and I don't want them messing with stuff once they start working. And it's a silly attitude, but I'm going to actually get back and start doing some modeling for the novelty of it. I've got 3
Cool.
projects set to start with, and actually maybe start working towards that AP stuff. I've got like 4 cars. I got 3 scratch built cars to finish, and a passenger car for my master builder rolling stock. So that's going to be the first target, I think. Start focusing on that.
Cool. So this was not much of a this wasn't much of a modeling activity, but I did get, so that's, you can see them. That's 4
That's
left
modeling.
and 4 left and 4 right fast tracks.
Nice.
That's modeling. It's more than
And
I've been doing.
yeah, they actually, it's interesting once you get the process. I did all 8 at the same time. So what I did was I did 8 frogs, and because you put 2 pieces into the jig and you do both sides. So I did 8 of those, cut them all, soldered them all together, soldered those together, then did 8 points left, 8 points right, 8 stock rails left, 8 stock rails right, and got them all together. So I had all the parts done, and then just made up the things. I actually bought their tie strips this time, which unfortunately, because they're so short, they end up being wasteful. You throw a lot away, it seems like. So by the way, if anybody has a need for a tie strip for soldering, they work really good for soldering. I'm actually looking at a little soldering project. I'm thinking about what I'm going to do is take when you cut the sides off of their tie strips, you end up with a piece about this long that's about maybe 3/8 of an inch wide. That's a solid piece of tie strip. And I figure you can cut that in 6 or 8 places. And you now got 6 or 8 soldering pads, put a couple of screws on it. It's a great way to solder on. Instead of having any other sort of thing, just solder them to that soldering pad. So somebody did that in a clinic anyway. Thought that was pretty good. So the other thing I want to show you this. So this is again. So if you think about the end of a yard, you've got tracks going out, turnouts going out to 6 tracks. You got a camera that's a view down on the track, so you want to be able to see which track is which. So you want to be able to number them. So basically, what I'm doing for Jim is creating these numbers. So there'll be one of these over each track. I was originally going to use PVC pipe, but when I went to Home Depot, I found this nice 3/8 inch. It's poplar wood rod. So what I'm actually doing is I'm doing them so they'll sit on there. And let me throw something up here. I'll show you. So these are I'll show you the designs of them if you're interested.
Home Depot's project wood selection is pretty nice. Those
Yep.
little pieces of wood are very.
Yeah, for $1.50, it really wasn't that bad for what I needed here for this thing. So basically, this is the number, and so you can kind of see what it looks like. It's going to go on. It's got a hole for just putting I just figure all I need is almost a spike or a little nail to go into the wood to hold it in the right position on the bar. And then what I'm doing is I'm building 2 towers that'll sit at each end and hold the wood out over the rails. And then you'll have those 6 numbers pointing down at each track. And I am going to write something up on it as well. Got to kind of remember, every time you do something, take lots of pictures and do a write-up. So anyway, let me share some pictures here, and I'll talk to you about the operating weekend. So the desert ops, they're kind of three fairly close operations weekends. There's Bay Rails, which alternates every year with SoCal Ops. So SoCal Ops has 1 year, Bay Rails is the next year. And so those are typically an operating weekend. The other one is Desert Ops. There's one called Sound Rail up in Puget Sound. Basically, the way typically an operating weekend works is they're Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Generally, there's something on Friday, maybe a Friday evening layout operations, and then Saturday and Sunday operations at different layouts. And often then there are other ones. So this year there was a additional Thursday night operation, and I actually went down to Phoenix on Thursday so I could do that on Thursday night. So I'll show you some pictures of some of the layouts that were open because they were kind of interesting. It was a little different. So this is the first layout I operated on. This is a, oh, hang on, I got the wrong thing up there. I got to get over here. So this is an ON30 narrow gauge layout, and I'm going to pull a blank on the names with it. I should have them up here. I have them. I just need to grab them. Very nice kind of upstairs room, drop ceiling lighting, very well done, complete ON30 layout. Nice sawmill scenes off here to the left. And, one of the nice things about ON30 is you typically get really smooth operations. So this was an example of, some of the operations on it. So one of the things that was interesting about for those of you that are operating aficionados, I'll talk about it in a second, but just go through these and I'll talk about it in a second. Another example of doing switching moves and picking up a couple of cars in the background. And these were all just Bachmann engines, and they all ran really well. So, and using car cards, and typically car cards seem to be the main mechanism that I saw down there. Very few people were using switch. I didn't see switch lists being used.
And manual uncoupling.
And manual uncoupling. That's why that pick light is such a cool thing. Here, so I got another one here. No, that wasn't the one I wanted. Hang on, I got a different picture here. Let me find the one I want. Up here it is. So the other one I want to show you, this is David Dyran. Whoop, wrong one. I want this picture. I got this open in 3 places. So
were these all in Palm Springs, or where was
this is in Tempe,
Phoenix?
Outside of Phoenix. And so unfortunately I didn't take a picture next to this, but this is a neighborhood that has, typical 60s middle class neighborhood, 65-foot lot lines. I should have taken a picture of the houses across the street to give context. So what David did was, apparently he wanted to build a big layout. The house next door came up for sale. His wife was convincible. He bought the house, tore it down, and he built a 2,000 square foot, 10-foot tall basement, which is underneath this area right here. So starting here over to right about here, underneath that, all the way back to the back of the building, it's all basement. And it's a 2,000 square foot basement for the model railroad. And then he built a house on top, and this is his garage actually right here. It actually goes in, and it's above the model railroad. The model railroad's actually under there. And this door here, when you go through it, there's a stairway down into the basement, and that's down into the model railroad. So I got a couple of pictures here that were longish pictures where you get an idea of the aisle length on the model railroad and kind of how it looks. So this is looking back from one end and back over past those people there, way back on that wall, past that corner is where that stairway comes down. You kind of see some light up there. That's where the stairway is at the other end. And this is the other side of that same walkway. This is his crew lounge in the middle. Right here on the right, there's actually a stairway that goes up into the house here in this area, and then a bathroom. Hang on, let me get the other pictures up here.
As I recall, Phil, I believe the basement crosses both lots.
Yeah, I think it does.
It's actually 2 lots worth. I think it's 4,000 square feet, not 2,000 square feet, because it is enormous.
Yeah, maybe it's big. You can see it's huge.
Wow.
So anyway, so what he's doing is, I mean, you can see how tall the basement is. What he's doing is he's putting in these drop valences, and you can see this is the wood patterns up here to carry the drop valences in this area. And this is the last area that's being built is over here. And this is yards and there's some staging, but you can see down here, this is there's about 40%, 40 to 50% of the layout that has this valencing in it. And that's down at that end. Hang on, so here are just some other pictures of it. So this is where this is kind of what it looks like in the areas that are more, what I'll say, completed and operational. Actually, it turns out the job I ended up doing was right here. It's the creamery job. And basically, this is a big creamery. There's a huge creamery complex there in Phoenix, in Tempe. And it goes over and services here. And then this is the kind of the main yard over here. He has his own private label railroad called Lost Dutchman. And this is their yard, and they interface with the SP. This is the SP tracks here. But just kind of some ideas. This is a picture back. This is that crew lounge area, the bathroom, and the stairs upstairs. And that's the island with the, so that was basically all the pictures I had of that. And then this was the last, I went to the Gilbert Club and I didn't take any pictures there. And I went with Lloyd and Tom from down south, and we drove to Williams and we're operating on a very interesting little ON30 layout there, but I forgot to take any pictures. So this was the last layout. This is an SN3 layout.
Oh.
And it's basically, Colorado narrow gauge. And again, operated very, very well. Actually, I think the ON30 layouts were smoother operation, but nice because you get, nice amounts of scenery in SN3. So anyway, those were two things on that. And I had one other.
You did Turner's, right, Phil?
Ray's. We went down to Ray's outdoor. Yep.
Well, not Ray Turner, the outdoor. I'm talking about Turner down south in Phoenix with the proto throttles.
No, I did not.
Oh, okay.
No.
I'll mention that because one of the guys had basically a switching layout. There were 4 jobs. Each job used a proto throttle. I don't know if you guys have ever seen one. These are for diesels. But operating with a proto throttle was both a challenge and really a lot of fun. If you've not seen one, essentially it's fairly big and bulky, but it's like a diesel stock. You've got the run positions. When you throw it to idle, the locomotive just drifts forever. So you have to apply brakes. When you go from idle up to run 7 or 8, it takes a while to spool up. When you shut it down, it takes a while to spool down. And so it's quite a challenge to switch with the proto throttle. It slowed things down. Of course, there you go. But it was I thought it would drive me nuts, but it turned out to be a lot of fun. So if you've got a small layout, I know guys talked about small layouts and operating on small layouts. It was not a big layout, but 4 of us had a blast just working with the proto throttles. Now it turns out that he had 2-man crews, and it turns out to be handy because if you're the engineer working the proto throttle, you don't have hands free to do the uncoupling or handling cards or whatever. So it turned out to be a lot of fun working with that proto throttle.
Yeah, I think I have heard those are great. I've never had the chance. So anyway, it's so, if the operation stuff, if you've never done it, um, there are great opportunities to engage in operations in the Bay Area. And we have a lot of operating layouts. We have a good operating community. And if you're interested, the SIG weekend's a great weekend to try it out up in the Sacramento area. Some nice layouts up there as well. So I had one more share. I went to the miniatures show. There was a miniatures show a few weekends ago at the DoubleTree, and I decided to go. I think the admission was $5. It was cheap. Parking was $5. The admission was, I don't know, $8 maybe. So I decided it was cheap. I have a bunch of pictures of it. So this is one of the things that I thought was really interesting was that they actually had a lot of 1/4-inch scale stuff there. And they actually, one of the guys who was there said they were told not to bring 1/4-inch, but there still was 1/4-inch. So this is all 1/4-inch scale. And this studio here building, it's a $86 kit. And these got these workbenches. They were all laser cut. Nothing in HO that I really found, though some of them said they did HO, but most of it, things they had were 187. So this is
just curious. Why were they told not to bring 1/4-inch?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah,
I have no idea. That's just one of the vendors said that they were, oh, the show's not a 1/4-inch show. It's focused on, the 1/12 and larger scales.
Okay.
That was just one of the vendors said. So one of the things I did was I actually got the names of the folks who are organizing, and I'm trying to arrange to maybe do something next year and see if we can get NMRA members a deal going into it or something, and if there's interest. It was kind of cool. It very much a miniatures show, but miniatures in many ways are models, so to speak, as well. So there's a lot of this kind of thing at it.
I know the 1/4-inch dollhouse stuff is a lot of what I used for my building interiors in O scale, so it's perfect. It's
exactly.
It's all over the place.
Exactly. So this was one that was kind of interesting. I took a picture. I may have another picture of it. This is a container coffee shop and store on the bottom and store on the top. And this is a kit you can buy.
They have one of those in Oakland.
Yep. Yeah. No, it was
Telegraph.
Yeah, I took a closer picture of it. So this was actually a kit they had for sale there. And I took pictures of their stuff. This was another guy who had a whole bunch of pre-painted things that you could use for gas tanks, etc. He had a lot of shelves and things. Now, by the way, most of these things, when you go to buy them, are not inexpensive. So, they're not terribly cheap. This was a woman who was, I think, from Finland. And she has all of these little kits. I bought one of these gallows here. I thought they were kind of cool, and I have a hill to put it on. But she had a whole bunch.
Did you have someone in mind, Phil?
No, just general purposes. Just
That
general
could be
purposes.
used to motivate a prison work gang.
Well, it was so what happened was I have a module that's a corner module, and I was going to build a fire tower on it. And I built the hill to put the fire tower on, and then I decided the fire tower is going to be far too fragile for a module. And so now I have a hill, and I was thinking about putting this on the top of the hill. And essentially, whenever anybody, touches the modules, you can say that's what that's reserved for bad behavior. Anyway, she had a whole bunch of different things. I mean, she's got stocks. She had more normal stuff, but a lot of other interesting stuff too.
Seems to have a rather dark imagination, but I like
I was
the style.
waiting
Yeah,
she was
yeah, she has a guillotine there. That's right. You saw the guillotine there. Yeah. She seemed quite interesting. And that girl with the dragon tattoo and all.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I took some pictures of her stuff. This was another person. These are all 1/4-inch. So there were about four. I found 4 vendors that had 1/4-inch, and then there were a couple that said they had but didn't bring them. And then I just took some pictures of some of the miniatures that were there, because some of them were pretty cool.
Wow.
I like that idea of the
Mm.
glass on the front of the building there. That was plastic. That was
Yeah,
you had those
covering
from
it.
the- Yeah,
Yep.
so
Yep.
keep the busy hands out, but you can see all
Yep.
the details.
Yeah, these are, and these are just plexiglass things with those brackets on them that hold it up. This was someone had brought this in, and it was the steamboat. They were all excited about it. So I kind of actually talked about potentially having the modular group come as well, because I think they would be very excited about what we do. And there may be some some potential modelers there. So they had a whole bunch of these, and they have in all the different ways of protecting them. They are very much under glass and protected. Um, I like the dollhouse of the dollhouse. This one, just unfortunately, the glass made it hard to get a picture inside, but this thing was just amazingly ornate.
Wow.
And that's actually you're looking into a model. It almost doesn't look like it. This one here, this was one of those mirror boxes with the mirror and then a half mirror here going back into it.
That's astounding. That's just
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And this thing's about 3 foot tall, so it's not tiny. This is pretty good size. I don't know. That was a train shop. That was my picture of the lack of merchandise in the train shop. My other commentary. So anyway, it was, I would say it wasn't quite worthwhile going to. It would definitely, if you were an HO modeler, you would have been disappointed. I think the question to ask the organizers is if they kind of if we promote it to the model railroad community, and they indicate to their members that, hey, there are going to be model railroaders coming there in other scales, will there be a wider variety of stuff to choose from? But definitely in quarter inch, there were some good things there, and I have the vendors I found, and I'm actually going to try to do something on new tracks with them and have them come on and talk about their products. So anyway, that was all I had. I've erped up all my modeling activities for the last couple of weeks. Any other comments? Excitement?
Well, I will mention that the railroad prototype modelers meets are getting spread around. We had one up here in Portland about 3-4 weeks ago. And there were some representatives from the Bay Area that came up for that. And for those who've never been to an RPM meet, it's definitely worth your while to go see. I think the one in Richmond is usually midsummer, something like that, late summer. But yeah, RPM meets, you see a lot of interesting things. I know I talking to Doug Harding, he'd gone off to Naperville and said that was an amazing show. But you'll get lots of ideas about how to do weathering techniques. There's no secrets there. Everybody will tell you exactly how they did it. I've gone out and hit a couple of estate sales and came across a whole bunch of the acrylic paints in the tubes, which are really good for weathering. So just something to think about.
Yeah, when we get that on, we'll get it on the calendar to make sure folks know about it. I guess the only other project we've been doing is in Pleasanton. We decided to do video systems, and we went ahead. One of our members replaced 2 TVs, and we inherited 2. I guess they're probably 42 or 45 inch, something like that. Samsung TVs, right? That size. And what we did was ended up buying a bracket, and one of our members welded up a mounting plate, and we mounted them, in the layout at kind of at a 45-degree angle up over the layout up high where you can see them. And we've run HDMI cables from both of them back, and we got a 4x4 switcher, 4 inputs, 4 outputs. And so what we're doing now is working through the inputs. So we've got, basically we do a video player, We've got I bought a drone receiver that receives drone camera signals and outputs HDMI. And so we've actually got a drone cameras running now around the layout. The first ones we got, the picture quality is not great, especially not the color quality. They got to get better. We got to get better cameras and transmitters, but we'll be able to have, be able to put up in camera. We also have a bunch of cameras we put up for kind of monitoring the layout congestion points, and we'll be able to put that up. So we'll be able to put up different things and play them on the camera system. So that's been interesting getting that all put together. So interesting toys we have. Well, and the cool thing about O-scale is you can actually put a camera in a locomotive reasonably easily. The cameras are, I don't know, about half an inch by half an inch by half an inch kind of cube. And then they've got a module that's got the electronics in it, and then you've got an antenna. And in an HO engine or an O-scale engine, you've got enough room to put it in. In an HO locomotive, you start getting really, really crowded for space pretty quickly. When you look at basically the weight and the frame and the motor and the electronics and that. So OM30 again is pretty reasonable. You can kind of find space in OM30.
Well, that's when you go use the proto throttle, is with the camera on board. Now you're running it from the engineer position.
Yeah. See, my thought always was that if you really want to do an interesting operations, what you need is a camera system that allows you a forward and rear camera from the train perspective, from the engineer perspective, and you do it just with front, and then on the layout, you got to figure out a way to put markers so you can tell move distance. It's interesting, the club down in Pasadena, they had done their yard and they put light posts where all the light posts were 2 40-foot cars with couplers apart. So in other words, if you had 6 light posts length of your train, you knew there were 12 cars. And so my thought was that if you put something beside the tracks, whatever it was, that was at certain regular intervals, as the engineer, if you said move 20 feet, if you saw one of those, you knew if you moved the same distance past the next one, that was 20 feet if they were 20 feet apart or whatever the numbers were. And then all of a sudden you get this really interesting thing where the engineer can be in another room. And, basically, the engineer, you have a walkie-talkie or a radio that has 2 frequencies. One is for the engineer and one is, maybe the main line to the dispatcher. But the idea is you talk to the engineer and the conductor says, okay, you're uncoupled, you can pull forward, and the engineer with the proto throttle pulls forward. And all of a sudden, in many ways, you have gotten really close to replicating the actual crew activity. I mean, if you think about it, all the engineer really sees in the locomotive is what he can see out of the windows right there.
And then you put a big subwoofer underneath the engineer's chair so he feels everything.
but it is an interesting thought process that you can actually disaggregate the engineer. I know, like the Silicon Valley Club has done that a bit with having remote engineers and local conductors. And actually with today's technology, it's really easy. Just take your headphones and make a phone call between you and just keep the phone line open for the whole operating session. Anyway, all very interesting. So everybody's got their calendars updated. Got to pull the email up from last night. That's why I said on the email to open it, because it really was. I was trying to get all the dates, start getting all the dates out, because I keep having people say, "Oh, I didn't know that was happening then," and then you get committed to something else. This way, you can get it in your calendar so that if something comes up, you at least know there's a conflict.
Yeah, I may try to see if I can be available for the Great Train Show in San Jose at the fairgrounds. That's not so far away. I can probably do a shift there, so that could be fun.
It's fun. I mean, the train shows, it's kind of it's a bit of a community too, because you got all the narrow. We know most everybody who's a modular in the modular groups, and who comes there and that. I sometimes there's something interesting at those trade shows. A lot of the times, the product wise, it's not that interesting. I don't know, she hasn't been for a few years, but the what is it? The Grand something designs. He was the guy who made the trees and stuff in Mexico. Grand Junction, Grand Junction? No, it's not. It's Grand Junction. But anyway,
Grand Central.
Grand Central. He used to occasionally be at the shows, and you'd wait until Sunday, and he'd make you a great deal on trees, so he didn't have to haul them home. And it was a great way of getting trees for your layout, that kind of thing. So,
Hey guys, I got to run. Have a great week. I'll see you all soon.
Yep.
super.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Well, I guess
All
we'll
right.
call it.
Time to wrap. Yeah.
We'll probably call it for a Saturday. Everybody have a good one.
Yeah. Thanks, Phil.
Thanks, Pat, for joining us. You can join us whenever you want. You don't have to join us when you're only in California. The internet works across straight lines.
Oh no,
It's
I tell
amazing.
you, we've been so busy up here. This house has been gone through new heater, new air conditioning, siding, paint job, roof. Windows are going to get done. So I'm finally at the point where I can start thinking about. I got a 400 square foot railroad room that I've got to start building on. Because
Cool.
I'm going to be modeling basically East Oakland from Adeline Street down to Marina Boulevard in San Leandro. That's going to be the extent of it. And it's going to be just a lot of work once I start building, but it's just trying to get everything in the house done first. And I get the windows done. I think we've got the major bites out of the way, and I can actually sit down and start doing things on the house. Oh, we're getting the rear deck replaced above it because it's got what they call a daylight basement. The basement is like probably 3.5 feet into the ground, and then the rest of it's above the ground.
Right.
So, and then the dining room is on the upper floor, and so the deck up there is it looks like it was built by a model railroader. It's scary. Not a problem. I'm gonna take a run for it. You guys take care.
Cool. Well, have a good one and come back.
Oh, I try to as things allow.
Talk to you guys later. Have a good one.